absolute and relative change. These are both ways that you can talk about the difference between any two values, whether that's from month to month, year to year, doesn't matter, area to area even. The difference is absolute change is found by taking the new value minus the old value. Simple subtraction. And our answer is going to be in a numerical form. It's going to be just a flat out number. Whereas relative change is found by taking the new value minus the old value and divide by the old. So you'll see me do things like new minus old divided by old, or just new minus old, because I think it's important just to refresh on how we find these values. The more you talk about it in your head, talk about it out loud, the easier it is to remember. Now, with the new minus old divided by old, we're going to talk about these things in terms of percentages. So we might say there's a 3% change or a 4% change, whereas the absolute change, we would just say there was an increase of $8,000. So it's different than, numbers here, percents here. Okay, let's do some problems. We have a bar graph here that talks about home sales in Indiana, the median sales price from 05 to 12. Now, in order to do this, we are going to have to estimate our prices. So I picked values to estimate. If you want to pick different values, it's the process that we're really worried about. So what's the absolute change? Remember, absolute change is new minus old from 09 to 2012. Now, this is the old. So 2009 is old, 2012 is new, because that's where we're going. So when I look at 2012, I think of 118,000. When I look at 09, I think of 110,000. So when I'm finding my absolute change, I would take 118 minus 110, because new, this is new, this one's old. New minus old gives me 8,000. Now, I put the word thousand on there because my label here says the sales prices are in thousands. So for part number one, the absolute change is $8,000. Now, is that change positive or negative, and what does it mean? Well, that change is positive, and a positive change means an increase in value. And I think that's easy to see. If I showed you this bar to this bar and said what happened from here to here, you would tell me prices went up. You can see that because in 2012 the bar is bigger, right? So that's a positive change is an increase. Let's estimate and interpret the change in median home sale price from 05 to 09. Now, if it just says the change, that is talking about absolute, which again, we know absolute change is new minus old. So from 2005, so this is old, to 2009, that's new. Okay, so 2009, we know we're using 110, and in 2005, I believe I used 116. So my new value is 2009, which is 110, minus old, which is 2005, 116. So my answer is negative 6,000. So now you can see I have a negative answer, and a negative means a decrease. From here to here, it went down. Easy to see. Number 4, estimate the change from 11 to 12. Well, we used 118 here, and we're going to use 113 for 2011. So here's my old, here's my new. Absolute change is new minus old. So my value for 2012 is 118 minus the value for 2011, which is 113, and my change is 5,000. And again, just to refresh, unit of change for absolute change, it's a number, right? 5,000, it's a number. Now let's go to relative change. So in relative change, we're doing new minus old divided by old. Okay, so 2009 is where we're coming from, so that's old. 2012 is new. 2012, I'm using 118. 2009, we're using 110. So new minus old divided by old. Make sure that you subtract in the top before you divide. And I end up with 0.073, which is roughly 7.3%. So from 2009 to 2012, there was a 7.3% increase. And I know it's an increase because this number is positive. Number 7, relative change from '05 to '09. Well, we know it goes down, so we would expect our value to be negative. Again, we're finding percent or relative change, so we're looking for new minus old divided by old. We're using 116 here and 110 here. From tells me old, to 2009 is new. So new, 2009, that's 110, minus the old, which is 116, divided by 116. When I subtract in the top, I get negative 6 over 116. That leads me to negative 0.052, which is negative 5.2%. Just like we thought. Because you can see it went down, we thought there was going to be a negative change, and there is. Number 8, unit of measure for relative change, always a percent. I guess you could use a decimal, but generally relative change, we talk about percentages. Number 9, let's write a meaningful sentence using the relative change in median home sale price from 2005 to 2009. Recall that we found that in number 7, and the answer was negative 5.2%. So, you want to kind of be specific, and you want to talk about when. From 2005 to 2009, there was a 5.2% decrease in median home sale prices in Indiana. Notice I did not have to put a negative sign out here because I used the word decrease. If you say decrease, that implies negative. If you say increase, that implies positive. So the decrease and the increase can work in a couple of different ways there. In number 10, according to the Indiana Association of Realtors, at $118,000 last year, the state's median sale price for existing home was 4% higher than 2011. So from here to here, they're saying it was a 4% increase. Now, does it look like a 4% increase? And my answer to that is no, it does not look like that. Because if I would cut this bar in half, cut this bar almost in thirds, it looks like it's a whole nother bar in terms, from here to here, which would be 1/3. That looks to be 33%. Can't really read that. But because it's 1/3 of the bars, it looks like it's a 33% increase from one to the other, right? This is a misleading graph. So, how do we actually find this? Let's check the accuracy. Okay, so since I didn't put the bar on this one, we know that this one is 118, and I believe we said this one was 113. So I want to find the relative change. The relative change we know is new minus old divided by old. My new value was 118, my old value is 113. So, new minus old divided by old. 5 divided by 113 gives me 0.044, which is roughly 4.4%. So it really is a 4% increase. It just doesn't look like it. And the reason why this graph is misleading, our vertical axis starts at 104. If our vertical axis would start at 0, they would be really close together, but all of these would be really close together. I mean, if you look at, there's only really a $14,000 difference between the lowest and the highest in terms of this graph, and there's really only an $8,000 difference between the top of the bars. So in order to be able to show a big difference between these bars, that is why we have to kind of mislead it with the vertical axis, but that's the way it is.